A single dad took 3 bullets to save a stranger's daughter. He never thought twice. But when that girl and her mother saw his broken life and the little daughter waiting for him at home, they knew they had to save him back. What happened next changed everything. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. Judge Margaret Thornton sat frozen behind her bench, her gavel trembling in her hand. The masked man's gun was pointed directly at her daughter, 23-year-old Emma, who sat in the front row with tears streaming down her face. "You took everything from me," the man screamed, his voice cracking with rage. "My brother is rotting in prison because of you." Nobody moved. The 2 security guards at the doors had been knocked unconscious in the initial attack. The gunman had planned this perfectly, waiting until the day's final case when the courthouse was nearly empty. But he hadn't planned for Marcus Williams. Marcus was a single father who worked as a janitor in the courthouse. He was 35 years old, with kind eyes and hands rough from years of hard work. Every day he cleaned these halls after his 8-year-old daughter Lily went to school. Every evening, he rushed home to make her dinner, help with homework, and tuck her into bed with a story. Today, Marcus had been cleaning the hallway outside the courtroom when he heard the screaming. Through the courtroom's small window, Marcus saw the gunman's finger tighten on the trigger. He saw Emma's terrified face. He didn't think about his own life. He didn't think about the danger. He only thought about one thing. That girl is someone's daughter, just like my Lily. Marcus burst through the door. "No!" he shouted, running toward Emma. The gunman turned, surprised. 3 shots rang out, echoing through the marble halls of justice. Marcus threw himself in front of Emma, his body absorbing all 3 bullets. He collapsed to the floor as Emma screamed. The security guards, regaining consciousness, tackled the gunman before he could fire again. Marcus lay bleeding on the courtroom floor, his uniform turning dark red. Judge Thornton rushed from her bench, pressing her jacket against his wounds while Emma held his hand, sobbing. "Why?" Emma cried. "Why did you do that? You don't even know me." Marcus smiled weakly, his voice barely a whisper. "You're someone's daughter. That's enough." The ambulance arrived within minutes, but as the paramedics worked frantically, one truth became terrifyingly clear. Marcus might not survive the night. At County General Hospital, little Lily Williams sat in the waiting room. She didn't understand why her daddy wouldn't wake up. The nice lady from social services had picked her up from school and brought her here. Lily clutched her teddy bear, the one her daddy had saved for months to buy her last Christmas. "Is my daddy going to be okay?" she asked every few minutes, her big brown eyes filled with fear. Judge Thornton and Emma arrived at the hospital still covered in Marcus's blood. When they saw the little girl in the waiting room, Emma's heart shattered. This brave man who had saved her life was a father. He had a daughter waiting for him. Emma knelt beside Lily. "Hi, sweetheart, what's your name?" "Lily," the girl whispered. "My daddy works at the courthouse. They said he got hurt." "Your daddy is the bravest man I've ever met," Emma said, tears falling freely. "He saved my life." The surgery lasted 7 hours. Marcus flatlined twice on the operating table. The doctors worked desperately, removing bullets, repairing damaged organs, fighting to save the life of a hero who had asked for nothing in return. When the surgeon finally emerged, exhausted and covered in sweat, he delivered the news that would change everything. "He's alive," Dr. Chin said, "but barely. The next 48 hours are critical. 1 bullet punctured his lung, another damaged his liver, and the 3rd came within millimeters of his spine. Even if he survives, he may never walk again." Judge Thornton felt her world tilt. This man had saved her daughter's life, and now he lay fighting for his own. She looked at little Lily, who had fallen asleep in Emma's arms, and made a decision. "Whatever he needs, whatever his family needs, I will make sure they have it," Judge Thornton declared. "This man saved my daughter. I will not rest until I repay that debt." But as she soon discovered, the debt was deeper than she ever imagined. Through the hospital records and conversations with Marcus's neighbors, Judge Thornton learned the full story of Marcus Williams. It was a story that broke her heart and filled her with shame for never noticing the quiet hero who had cleaned her courthouse for 3 years. Marcus's wife, Sarah, had died 4 years ago. She had been a teacher, full of life and laughter. But cancer had taken her slowly, painfully. Marcus had spent every penny they had trying to save her, selling their house, their car, everything. He had held her hand as she died, promising to take care of their daughter no matter what. After Sarah's death, Marcus had been left with nothing but debt and a 4-year-old daughter who cried for her mommy every night. He had worked 3 jobs at first, barely sleeping, living in a tiny apartment in the worst part of town. Eventually, he had gotten the courthouse janitor position. It didn't pay much, but it had health insurance for Lily. That was all that mattered. Every morning Marcus woke up at 5. He made Lily breakfast, walked her to the bus stop, then took 2 buses to the courthouse. He cleaned from 7 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. Then he rushed home to meet Lily when she got off the school bus. He helped with homework, made dinner from whatever food stamps could buy, and spent his evenings being both mother and father to his little girl. Marcus never complained. He never asked for help. He simply loved his daughter with every breath in his body. And now, that body lay broken in a hospital bed, machines breathing for him. On the 3rd day Marcus opened his eyes. The first word he whispered was Lily. "She's safe," Emma said immediately, holding his hand. She had barely left his bedside since the shooting. "Your daughter is safe and being taken care of." Marcus tried to sit up, but pain shot through his body. I need to go home. She needs me." "You need to rest," Judge Thornton said, entering the room. "And please, Mr. Williams, let us help you. You saved my daughter's life. That's a debt I can never repay, but I can try." Marcus shook his head weakly. "I don't want charity. I just want to go home to Lily." "It's not charity," Emma said firmly. "You're a hero. Heroes deserve to be honored, not to suffer." But Marcus was stubborn. Even as his body fought to heal, even as the medical bills piled up to hundreds of thousands of dollars, he refused to accept what he called handouts. He had his pride. He had always taken care of himself and Lily. He didn't know how to be the one receiving help. Judge Thornton quickly realized that direct assistance would be refused. So she became creative. She quietly paid Marcus's hospital bills, registering them as paid through the courthouse's Victim Assistance Fund. She arranged for Lily to stay with Emma temporarily, telling Marcus it was required by social services during his recovery. She organized a courthouse staff support fund, and made sure every penny went to Marcus's rent and expenses. Marcus suspected, but he was too weak to argue, too worried about Lily to push back. Week by week Marcus grew stronger. The doctors had been wrong about him never walking again. Marcus's determination proved more powerful than their predictions. He pushed through agonizing physical therapy, driven by the thought of Lily waiting for him. Every painful step, every exhausting exercise he did for her. Emma visited every day, bringing Lily with her after school. Judge Thornton often came too, and a strange thing began to happen. These 2 wealthy, powerful women who lived in a different world from Marcus began to see life through his eyes. They saw how Lily wore shoes that were too small because Marcus couldn't afford new ones. They saw how the little girl never complained, never asked for anything, because she had learned from her father's example. They saw the love in every simple meal Marcus had taught Lily to cook, in every homework assignment he had struggled to help her with despite his own limited education. They saw dignity in poverty, love in sacrifice, and wealth in the bond between father and daughter. And they were forever changed. After 6 weeks, Marcus was finally discharged from the hospital. He could walk with a cane now, though his body would never be the same. The doctor said he couldn't return to his physically demanding janitor job for at least 6 months, maybe never. Marcus's heart sank. How would he support Lily? How would they survive? He returned to his tiny apartment, determined to find a way. But when he opened the door, he stopped in shock. The apartment had been transformed. The leaking ceiling was fixed. The broken heater worked. The walls had been painted. There was new furniture, a real bed for Lily instead of the mattress on the floor, a refrigerator full of food. Emma and Judge Thornton stood in the living room, smiling nervously. "What is this?" Marcus asked, his voice breaking. "It's not charity," Judge Thornton said quickly. "It's a debt repaid. You saved my daughter's life, Mr. Williams. Please let us do this small thing." Marcus stood silent for a long moment, leaning on his cane, emotions warring across his face. Finally, tears began to fall. "I've been so tired," he whispered. "So tired for so long. Trying to be enough for her, trying to give her everything she needs." Emma stepped forward. "You've given her the most important thing. You've given her love. You've shown her what real strength looks like. But please let us help carry the burden now." Lily ran to her father, hugging his legs carefully, mindful of his injuries. "Daddy, can we say yes? The nice ladies have been so kind. And you're hurt. It's okay to need help sometimes, right? That's what you always tell me." Marcus looked down at his daughter and finally nodded. But Judge Thornton wasn't finished. She had spent the weeks of Marcus's recovery researching, planning, and making calls. She had discovered something remarkable about the quiet janitor who had saved her daughter. Before his wife's illness, Marcus had been 2 years into a law degree. He had dreamed of becoming a lawyer, of helping people who couldn't help themselves. But when Sarah got sick, he had dropped out to care for her and Lily. His transcripts showed straight A's. His professors remembered him as brilliant and compassionate. "Mr. Williams," Judge Thornton said, "I have a proposal. The courthouse has a program for injured employees. It provides full salary and benefits during recovery, plus educational opportunities. If you're interested, we could help you finish your law degree." Marcus stared at her in disbelief. I can't afford." "Full scholarship," Emma interrupted. "And Lily can attend the same private school where my mother teaches. Full scholarship for her too. Before you refuse, before you say it's too much, please think about Lily. Think about the future you could give her." Marcus's hands shook. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you do all this for me?" Judge Thornton's eyes filled with tears. "Because you remind me of what I forgot. When I first became a judge, I believed in justice, in protecting people, in making the world better. But somewhere along the way I became cold. I focused on laws and procedures and forgot about the people behind them. You, Marcus Williams, you showed me true justice, true courage, true love. You didn't think about rules or procedures. You saw someone in danger and you acted. You risked everything for a stranger's daughter. You've been risking everything every day for your own daughter, working yourself to exhaustion to give her a good life. That's the kind of character we need more of in this world. And if I can help you achieve your dreams while you've helped me rediscover my purpose, then it's not charity. It's justice finally being served." Marcus sat down heavily, overwhelmed. Lily climbed into his lap and he held her close. "Daddy's going to be a lawyer?" Lily asked, her eyes wide with wonder. "If you want me to be," Marcus whispered. "I want you to be happy, Daddy. You're always taking care of me. Now let them take care of you." That simple wisdom from an 8-year-old child broke through Marcus's final resistance. He nodded, unable to speak through his tears. The next few months were a whirlwind of changes. Marcus enrolled in online classes while he continued his physical therapy. Lily started at her new school, nervous at first but quickly making friends. Emma became like an aunt to Lily, teaching her to paint and taking her to museums. Judge Thornton helped Marcus study, sharing her decades of legal knowledge. But the most profound change was in Marcus himself. As his body healed, so did his heart. He had carried grief and exhaustion for so long, he had forgotten what hope felt like. Now, studying late into the night while Lily slept peacefully in a warm, safe bed, Marcus allowed himself to dream again. Not just for survival but for a real future. He dreamed of graduating, of passing the bar exam, of opening a small practice helping people like himself. People forgotten by the system, people struggling at the edges of society, people who needed someone to see their humanity. The gunman who had started this whole chain of events went to trial. His name was Victor Martinez, and his brother had been convicted of armed robbery in Judge Thornton's court. Victor had blamed the judge for his brother's imprisonment, never accepting that his brother was guilty. Marcus attended the trial, walking with only a slight limp now. When called to testify, Marcus did something unexpected. "I don't hate you," he told Victor from the witness stand. "I feel sorry for you. You were so consumed by anger and grief that you couldn't see straight. I know what that's like. When my wife died, I was angry at the world too. But I had Lily to think about, and that saved me. Your rage took you down a dark path, and now you'll pay for that. But I forgive you. Not because what you did was okay, but because holding on to hatred would make me like you. And I refuse to let your darkness into my life." The courtroom sat in stunned silence. Even Victor Martinez had tears on his face. "I'm sorry," Victor whispered. "I'm so sorry for what I did to you." Judge Thornton, who had recused herself from this case, watched from the gallery with Emma. She saw in Marcus's testimony everything she had lost and needed to regain: compassion, forgiveness, and the ability to see the humanity in everyone, even those who had done wrong. 2 years later, Marcus Williams graduated from law school. He finished in the top of his class, despite having to work around his physical limitations and his responsibilities as a single father. Lily, now 10 years old and thriving in school, sat in the front row at his graduation, holding a sign that read, "That's my daddy." Judge Thornton and Emma sat beside her, tears of pride streaming down their faces. After the ceremony, Marcus stood before his family, because that's what they had become, a family forged not by blood but by sacrifice and love. "I have an announcement," Marcus said, smiling. "I've been offered a position at the public defender's office. Good salary, good benefits, meaningful work. But I've decided to do something else." Everyone looked at him in surprise. I'm opening my own practice, Marcus continued. Williams Legal Aid. I'll help people who can't afford lawyers, people struggling like I was. And I'm not doing it alone. He looked at Emma. Emma has agreed to be my partner. She finished her law degree last month. Emma had indeed been inspired by Marcus's journey. She had gone back to school, determined to use her privilege and education to make a real difference. Together, Marcus and Emma would help people who had fallen through the cracks of the justice system. Judge Thornton stood up, her voice thick with emotion. I'm so proud of both of you. You've reminded this old judge why she fell in love with law in the first place. Marcus, you saved my daughter's life that day in the courtroom. But the truth is you saved my life too. You showed me what real justice looks like. You saved mine too, Emma added. I was drifting, not knowing what I wanted to do with my life. Watching you fight for your daughter, for your dreams, for a better future despite everything against you, you showed me what courage really means. Marcus shook his head, smiling. I'm not a hero. I'm just a father who loves his daughter. And I was blessed to find people who saw past my circumstances to the person I could become. Lily tugged on Marcus's sleeve. Daddy, tell them about the surprise. Marcus laughed. Can't keep a secret, can you, sweetheart? He looked at the others. We're moving into a new place next month. A small house, nothing fancy, but it has a yard where Lily can play. And... He paused, his voice growing soft. It's on the same street where Sarah and I lived when we first got married. Feels like coming home. Like her spirit approves of how far we've come. Judge Thornton dabbed at her eyes. Sarah would be so proud of you, Marcus. So incredibly proud. The months turned into years. Williams Legal Aid became known throughout the city as the place where people without hope could find help. Marcus and Emma won cases that seemed impossible. They helped single mothers keep their children, helped veterans get the benefits they deserved, helped the homeless get off the streets. Marcus never forgot where he came from. Every client who walked through his door saw in him a reflection of their own struggles. He understood their fears, their desperation, their need for someone to believe in them. And he fought for them with the same fierce love he had always had for Lily. Lily grew into a remarkable young woman, inspired by her father's example. She volunteered at homeless shelters, tutored underprivileged children, and dreamed of becoming a social worker. I want to help people like you helped me, she told her father on her 16th birthday. I want to make sure no child has to watch their parents struggle alone. Judge Thornton retired from the bench but not from the fight for justice. She joined the board of Williams Legal Aid, using her connections and influence to help the practice grow. She and Marcus became close friends, often discussing cases late into the evening. You changed my life, she told him one day 5 years after the shooting. Before that day I was just going through the motions. Now every day has purpose. You gave me my life back, Marcus replied. You and Emma. You saw me when I was invisible. You believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. Emma, who had been listening, smiled. We were meant to find each other. Sometimes tragedy brings people together for a reason. 10 years after the shooting, Marcus stood in the same courtroom where it had all begun. He was there for a special ceremony. The courthouse was renaming their Victim Services Center after him, the Marcus Williams Center for Justice and Compassion. As Marcus looked around the room, memories flooded back. He remembered that terrible day, the sound of gunshots, the feeling of bullets tearing through his body, the fear that he would never see Lily again. But he also remembered what came after. The love that had surrounded him in his darkest hour. The way strangers had become family. The opportunity to rebuild not just his life but his dreams. Lily, now 18 and preparing to start college, stood beside him. She had grown into a beautiful young woman with her mother's smile and her father's kind heart. Proud of you, Dad, she whispered, squeezing his hand. Marcus's eyes swept across the crowd. He saw the faces of hundreds of people he had helped over the years. Former clients whose lives had been changed by Williams Legal Aid. He saw Judge Thornton, elderly now but still sharp as ever. He saw Emma and her 2 young children, the next generation learning the value of service. And he saw, in the back of the room, Victor Martinez. Victor had been released from prison 2 years ago after serving his sentence. Marcus had visited him regularly during his incarceration, talking about forgiveness and redemption. When Victor was released, it was Marcus who had helped him find a job and a place to live. It was Marcus who had shown him that one terrible mistake didn't have to define a life. Their eyes met across the crowded room and Victor nodded, tears on his face. A nod that said thank you. A nod that said I'm sorry. A nod that said you showed me what real mercy looks like. As Marcus stepped to the podium to speak, his heart was full. 10 years ago, I was a janitor cleaning these halls, he began. I was invisible to most people. I was tired, struggling, barely surviving. But I was rich in the one thing that mattered most: love for my daughter. He looked at Lily. Everything I did for her. And when I saw someone else's daughter in danger, I didn't think. I just acted. Because that's what love does. It doesn't calculate the cost. It doesn't worry about the consequences. It simply protects, without question, without hesitation. His voice grew stronger. What I didn't know that day was that by giving everything I had, I would receive everything I needed. Judge Thornton and Emma didn't just save my life. They showed me that kindness is the most powerful force in the world. They proved that we're all connected, that one person's courage can inspire another's compassion, that from tragedy can come transformation. I'm not special, Marcus continued. I'm just a man who loved his daughter and got lucky enough to meet people who cared. But I've learned something important over these years. We all have the power to be someone's miracle. Every day we pass by people who are struggling, people who are invisible, people who just need someone to see them. He gestured to the crowd. Look around this room. Every person here has a story. Every person here has struggled. And every person here has the power to change someone else's life, just by choosing to care. Marcus's voice broke with emotion. Don't wait for a dramatic moment to be a hero. Be a hero in the small moments. See the janitor. Acknowledge the cashier. Help the single parent. Listen to the lonely. Believe in the one who has lost hope. That's real heroism. That's real justice. People stood, tears flowing freely. They had come to honor a hero, but Marcus had reminded them that heroism lives in everyday choices to love and serve others. After the ceremony, as the crowd dispersed, Marcus sat on a bench outside the courthouse. Lily sat beside him, her head on his shoulder just like when she was a little girl. Mom would be so proud of you, Lily said softly. Marcus smiled, looking up at the sky. I hope so, sweetheart. I've tried to honor her memory by being the man she believed I could be. You're more than that, Dad. You're the man who saved someone's life without thinking about your own. You're the man who forgave the person who hurt you. You're the man who helps people others have given up on. You're my hero. Marcus pulled his daughter close. And you're mine, Lily. You're the reason I fought so hard to survive. You're the reason I kept going when everything seemed impossible. Being your father has been the greatest honor of my life. As the sun set over the city, casting long shadows across the courthouse steps, Marcus thought about the journey that had brought him here. From the depths of grief after losing Sarah, through years of exhausting struggle, through the violence of that terrible day, through recovery and redemption, to this moment of peace and purpose. He had learned that life is not about avoiding pain but about transforming it into something beautiful. He had learned that true wealth isn't measured in money but in love and purpose. He had learned that the most broken places in our hearts can become the places where light shines through to help others. 20 years later, Marcus Williams stood before another crowd. He was 75 years old now, his hair white, his body slowed by age and old injuries. But his eyes still shone with the same kindness that had defined his life. He was retiring from Williams Legal Aid, which had grown into one of the largest pro bono law firms in the country. Over the years, they had helped tens of thousands of people. They had changed laws, challenged injustices, and given voice to the voiceless. Lily, now a renowned social worker and advocate for children's rights, stood beside him. She had 3 children of her own, and she had taught them the same values her father had taught her: courage, compassion, and the power of loving others before yourself. Emma, also elderly now, hugged Marcus tightly. We did it, partner. We made a difference. We did, Marcus agreed. But the work continues. There are always more people who need help, always more injustice to fight. Judge Thornton had passed away 2 years earlier, at the age of 95. But her legacy lived on in the foundation she had established, which provided scholarships and support to single parents pursuing education. Before her death, she had told Marcus, "You gave me 30 extra years of purpose and joy. Meeting you and saving your daughter was the best thing I ever did." Marcus had corrected her gently, "You saved me, Judge. In every way a person can be saved." As Marcus's retirement celebration wound down, he found himself alone for a moment, standing in front of a memorial wall in the Williams Legal Aid office. The wall held photos of everyone they had helped over the years, hundreds of faces, each one a story, each one a life changed. But pride of place, in the center of the wall, was a photo from that day 10 years ago at the courthouse ceremony. In it, Marcus stood with Lily, Judge Thornton, Emma, and Victor Martinez. 5 people brought together by tragedy, transformed by love. Marcus touched the photo gently, his hand trembling with age. "We did good, didn't we, Sarah?" he whispered to his long-dead wife. "We raised an amazing daughter. We helped a lot of people. We made the world a little bit better." He felt, as he often did in quiet moments, a sense of his wife's presence. A warmth, a comfort, an assurance that she had been with him all along, watching over them, proud of the man he had become and the father he had been. That night, surrounded by his daughter, his grandchildren, his friends and colleagues, Marcus reflected on his life. He had started with nothing. He had lost everything. He had faced death. But through it all he had held on to the one thing that mattered: love. Love for his daughter had given him the strength to work 3 jobs and never complain. Love for a stranger's daughter had made him throw himself in front of bullets. Love for justice had driven him to help thousands of people. Love had been his compass, his strength, his purpose. And in the end, love had been enough. Not because his life had been easy, it hadn't. Not because he had avoided pain, he had suffered greatly. But because love had transformed every hardship into purpose, every scar into strength, every ending into a new beginning. As Marcus lay in bed that night, Lily and her family staying in his home just as she had stayed in his tiny apartment all those years ago, he felt at peace. His body was tired, worn out by years of struggle and sacrifice. But his heart was full. He thought about that day in the courthouse, about the choice he had made in a split second. He had never regretted it, not for one moment. Because that choice had led to everything good in his life. The friendship with Judge Thornton and Emma, the education that had transformed his future, the career that had given him purpose, the knowledge that he had made a difference. One bullet could have ended his story. Instead, 3 bullets had begun a new chapter, not just for him but for everyone whose life he touched. Marcus Williams had been called a hero, but he never felt like one. He was just a father who loved his daughter, a man who believed in doing the right thing, a person who chose to see the humanity in everyone. And in being simply, beautifully human, he had shown the world what real heroism looks like. It looks like sacrifice without expectation of reward. It looks like forgiveness in the face of hatred. It looks like hope in the midst of despair. It looks like love, always love, choosing to give even when you have nothing left. Marcus Williams closed his eyes that night with a smile on his face. He had been invisible, then he had been a hero. But what he was most proud of was something simpler. He had been a good father. He had kept his promise to Sarah. He had raised their daughter with love. And in doing so, he had discovered that the greatest legacy anyone can leave is not wealth or fame, but the ripples of kindness that spread from one life to another, from one generation to the next, forever changing the world in small but profound ways. The single dad who took bullets for a judge's daughter had done more than save one life that day. He had saved an idea. The idea that ordinary people can do extraordinary things, that broken people can heal others, that the most powerful force in the universe isn't violence or hatred or greed. It's love. Always in the end it's love.